when do you know you need a brand at that point?
We've had some small businesses come to us before that kind of compare themselves to.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs look at competition that's somebody's further ahead of them, and they see they have a brand and they don't really grasp what that is. And like, I just want to look legit.
So the complexity of a brand really comes down to take inventory of where your business is at. What does the next chapter look like for you? And does the brand that you set forth still align with that? Some of the elements that kind of go into this are
So the other day, you were talking about your logo is not your brand, and you seen something that sparked that. You went on a huge rant. What was that?
I wouldn't call it a rant, but McDonald's has a new campaign where they are not using any logos at all on any of their advertising. It's just a red image with yellow text that says "you know where," and that's it. There's no imagery. There's no nothing. It's just red and yellow. It says "you know where," and I think that is just the coolest way to display that you don't need a logo, because anybody, at least anybody in America, will see that and they will know that's a McDonald's advertisement. And there's no logo, there's no golden arches, there's no fries or burgers, like there's no imagery on it at all. It's just a red background with yellow text that says "you know where." And I think that that's genius.
No, I think it's really cool. Now, I don't know, does that work for like a small brand though?
I think it depends. Like there's a lot of context to that, because if your brand is small, but say it's a local company that's like very well known in your specific town and you really cater to the people in that town, then maybe something like that could work. I would call that kind of bold for a smaller brand, but I think it all depends on how your brand is positioned. Mm-hmm. I think if you do a lot of work up front on the strategy and the positioning, then yeah, that could work.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it's cool to get to the point when you can do that and you kind of look at some. And actually, I think you see this on Instagram and YouTube, like in your feed. Some people have a certain style, especially in photography, but I see it mainly in the YouTube space where I spend most of my time. You will see a thumbnail, and I know who it is pretty much just by the thumbnail on that. And there's no, some of these YouTubers have logos, but there's no logo in it. Instagram, usually if you open up Instagram or you're scrolling, you may see something that just, feels like somebody or their brand. I don't know if that's the same thing, even though it's not like a campaign or anything, but it's that concept that McDonald's has taken.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like your personal aesthetic in a sense. Yeah. Like there's personal branding and then there's business branding. And in general, I mean, it's the same concept applied to it. Like you find something that is uniquely you, and then you kind of capitalize on that visually in a sense.
What would that be for us?
For Absorb?
Yeah.
We're bold. We're authentic. We have this kind of, I don't like to say cinematic, but we have this kind of filmic style. It's different.
We try to separate on the video side, definitely more toward cinema outside of videography.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
film.
Even in like general content that we create, we have a different style compared to most content creators or videographers, anything like that. So, yeah.
So what is that? There's no logo. What is that we're looking at in the brand? Like what makes that the brand?
Well, there's a lot of positioning and strategy that go into that. And big corporations like McDonald's, for example, they put a lot of time and effort into building that brand and making sure that it's consistent across every touch point within their business. So it's everything from how their employees work and operate on like a person-to-person level all the way up to, the C-suite and the more white-collar type jobs within there. Like everybody is kind of centralized around what is the core mission, vision, values, everything that this company represents. And then that is what informs the color palette, the typography, and then what you kind of consider the visual identity of a brand.
What comes first, the logo or the brand?
Definitely the brand, because you have to spend so much time working on the actual strategy of who you are and what you do and what makes you different compared to your competitors. Like what makes you stand out in a very crowded market. And McDonald's, again, is a perfect example of that, because they're up against Burger King, Wendy's, Arby's, Taco Bell, like every other fast food restaurant that you can imagine. And yet McDonald's is uniquely McDonald's. And you can say the same thing about every other fast food restaurant, like Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, those are the three primary competitors, and they are all uniquely different in their own branding and marketing.
Yeah. So you're telling me they didn't just go have AI or make a logo in Canva, start their business, first thing they do?
No, definitely not.
I think a lot, when you start a business, you're a lot of entry entrepreneurs, starter entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
beginner entrepreneurs, baby entrepreneur. Anyone starting a business, I mean, they get so excited about like the logo and the name. They get so fixated on that first. It's always that first. So when would you say somebody, typically the entry level entrepreneur, hits that wall where they find out they need a brand? They built their website, or AI did, or they had, their brother their brother or their nephew, somebody make their logo, or AI did it, and they have the name, logo, website, business is going, and they typically at some point find out they need a brand. When do you know you need a brand at that point?
I mean, it will differ for every single business, and especially someone who's just starting out, they're most likely not going to know that they need a brand. They know they need some kind of identity, but most people don't think like, I need a brand. They think name,
Yeah.
logo, website, like those are kind of the main things. Nowadays, a lot of people don't even think they need a website. You still do. That's a topic for another time. But but a lot of people don't realize that all of those things are connected, and they should really all work together to form an ecosystem for the identity of your business. And from our experience, at least in, kind of local businesses that we've worked with, and I'm sure other businesses face this too, but at least in our local market, we see a lot of businesses usually around like the 5-year mark or so is kind of when that's that tipping point where they really see kind of a future in their business, and they see that this is like, okay, I'm maturing, I'm ready to take the next step. Maybe they're at the point where they're hiring in a couple of employees or something like that, depending on what the business actually is. And typically at that point is when they start to realize like, okay, now this is bigger than just me, or this is bigger than like just me and my son, or whatever it may be. And now it really matters to make sure that the quality of service that you yourself are providing is also being provided throughout the other avenues of your business. And the way that you do that is by establishing a core set of values, which is the first step in establishing a brand. So yeah, all that to say, the word brand is probably not what most startup entrepreneurs are focused on, but it's something that eventually they will kind of hit a tipping point and realize that that is kind of a first step in growing and establishing your business.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs look at competition that's somebody's further ahead of them, and they see they have a brand, and they don't really grasp what that is. And they're like, I just want to look legit. I need to look legit. And when they start saying I need to look legit is usually when they find out they need a brand.
Yeah. We've had some small businesses come to us before that kind of compare themselves to the other bigger companies, especially in our area, because we do work with a lot of local businesses. And so we've had that quite a bit, where a small business will come to us and they'll say, I want to look like this company, or I want, this company does so well, and we see them all over the place doing XYZ, whatever it may be, and they always compare themselves to whoever's bigger, whoever the next biggest person is. And they kind of see that growth trajectory, but 9 times out of 10, they don't realize that a brand is what they need to get to that next level. And that's where we come in.
Once we build them a brand, like they look as legit as that person, may not look just like them, but you look as legit as them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all in the positioning and just the visual aesthetic of it. Because once you have the brand, you have the strategy and the foundation. And as long as your team is following that brand and you are all aligned on that, then it'll just take time for your business to kind of grow at that point. But it at least opens up the door for you to be perceived as more put together than someone who just threw together a logo and a phone number on Facebook or something.
So it's all those things around a logo. Mm-hmm. So what are some of those things around a logo? I know there's a lot.
Yes. So the complexity of a brand really comes down to your business and kind of what your goals are. And it is something that can kind of grow and evolve. And it's very typical to establish your brand at first, and then every I'd say 5 to 10 years or so, kind of refresh it. You don't necessarily need to design a whole new logo all the time, but just kind of, take inventory of where your business is at. What does the next chapter look like for you? And does the brand that you set forth still align with that? So some of the elements that kind of go into this are your mission, vision, values. So kind of the core values of your business. So number one would be establishing who are you? What do you do? What is your goal with this business? And then that will kind of inform the baseline strategy. And then you go into brand positioning, like how do you compare to the other competitors and who is your target audience? So personas and audiences are another piece of your brand. And all of that needs to be done before you even start thinking about the visual identity, because each one of those strategy pieces that start the brand, that is what informs the actual visual identity. So once you have that kind of groundwork done and you really establish on paper in a written direction of who you are and what you do and what your goal is, then a good designer would be able to take each of those elements and design a unique logo and a visual system that kind of reinforces that. So if anybody doesn't know, colors all there's a psychology to different types of colors. So, if you are a landscaping company, most people think of green, but other good colors for landscaping would be blue and yellow because they're energetic. Blue is trustworthy. Like you can put those together. Green is the color that comes from each of those. And then now you have a full palette of yellow, blue, and green. And all of those kind of each mean and represent different things that kind of reinforce who you are and what you do. Same thing goes with typography. Different types of fonts have a different feeling and a different aesthetic to them. So a designer would be able to look at the positioning of your brand that you put together and kind of choose the fonts, the color palette that kind of align with the direction that you want to go. So everything should be an ecosystem that kind of reinforces that direction of your business. And then comes the actual logo. And there should never just be one logo. You should have logo variations. So whether that's something that works at a very small scale, all the way up to billboards or truck wraps or, large signage or anything like that.
Yeah. All the little things that are kind of nudging you in a direction of a vibe, an emotion, a feeling to where you don't need a logo for your brand. Yep. I think all the stuff you've been making on our Instagram is a good example of that too. You've done a good job at that. I can look at that and I recognize our brand at that point. All the Instagram posts you've been making of even just our testimonials, our case studies. I think all of that just, I see that and I'm like, oh, it's Absorb. And hopefully other people are seeing that too. And like, oh, it's Absorb post.
Yeah.
And there's no logo.
And for reference, we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary for Absorb. And it's not like the direction that we have now is the same thing that we had 10 years ago. Like our logo has changed twice in the last 10 years, like our logo alone. And then we've added other teams to our business. And so we've had to expand multiple times on what our brand is. And we do branding as a core service. So that's just a testament of
that baby entrepreneur that was like, I made my logo and I was like, hey, I want to look legit.
You actually had me make your logo.
Yeah, I just told you what to make. There was no brand. I just like, hey, make this cool thing. It looks awesome.
Yeah. Then you tried to make your own website that didn't align with the logo that I had already created for you. It was like, I don't
even know how I
need to help with this.
Yeah. Now it's legit.
Thanks. But I think that, Absorb is a testament to that like we are a smaller business than most. We're larger than just like one or two people, but we're still considered a small business in the grand scheme of things. And the fact that our brand has gone through multiple iterations in the last 10 years, and now we do have a good solid direction of where we're going, but it is still being iterated on. It's still evolving in a very creative sense.